Welcome back to the Phil Rosenberg Show. Tonight we have a very, very special show for you. We're going to talk about technology and the crossover between technology and art. So, braces for your teeth, hearing aids, mascara brushes, safety helmets used for the NFL, golfing equipment, bicycle frames, jewelry, razor handles, the soles of your sneakers, eyeglasses, and art. What do all of these three things have in common? So let me first welcome Stella Chang. Thank you so much for being here. She's going to explain what all of these things have in common. You want to just say, I think you know the answer already. What do all those things have in common?
Technology.
That's right. And all of those things are produced through the 3D printing process, or can be.
Yes, yes,
right?
They all can.
So the world has really changed around us. It used to be an artist was at home creating on a canvas, and you had paint, you had some sort of canvas, maybe an easel, and it just seems like, God, everything is different now, right? Or maybe you work with clay as a sculptress, but these things have now evolved.
Correct.
So let me start with the basics, because we're going to talk about 3D printing a lot, and I want it's a fairly new technology. It's been around for a little while, but it seems like we're only seeing about the tip of the iceberg in terms of what it can actually do, what it will be able to do at some point. So what is 3D printing?
It is a printer, an actual printer. It comes in different sizes. You have different sizes of print beds. And what happens is that it uses filaments. And filaments are literally long tubing lines that you can feed into the machine. And the machine will read whatever computer-generated files that you create, and it will create layers upon layers of materials. And through those layering, it builds a three-dimensional object.
It's really amazing to think about all of the, I mean, can you imagine there are people that can make guns out of 3D?
Guns, even organs, houses, and people are trying out with like foods, and now it's
now, when you say organs, by the way, we're not talking about like a piano. We're talking about things that live inside or exist inside the human body, right?
I'm talking about human organs, like liver.
Right. So like biological.
Yes.
Can you explain that at all? I know this is maybe a little bit out of your wheelhouse. But how can a 3D printing thing become part of a biological unit?
It's funny you ask that. It's a little bit outside of my areas of expertise, but one of my cousins who's a doctor, the way he explained it to me is that it's about the material. It can print any materials as long as you calibrate the machine to print it. So they cultivate cells. The cells, let's say, that generates a liver, and they feed it into the machine and it start printing it just like it will print anything else.
That is absolutely stunning. Really, it's almost unbelievable. So I mentioned earlier just a few of the many things that can be done using the 3D printing process, but I'd like you to connect the dots now, if you wouldn't mind, between the world of 3D printing, all the many things, and let's now really zoom into the world of art and talk about how 3D printing has changed and enabled and democratized the world of art.
Back in the day when I was in art school, we all had to take sculpture class and understand human anatomies. And just to give you an idea, to actually create a full-size sculpture, let's say of a human, of a girl sitting there, a live model, it can take me almost 3 months, literally building the muscle with clay, 1 inch at a time. That's how sculptures used to be done. With 3D printing, let's say I work in a 3D modeling program like ZBrush. That's what I work with. I use ZBrush. I start sculpting inside the program.
Interesting. Yeah. So what's the barrier to entry? I mean, like, what does it cost for me? If I want to go out and buy a 3D printer, how much money am I looking at to be able to do reasonable stuff? I don't know. I guess there's like the low end and the high end. What's the range and what do I get for that amount of money?
Honestly, if you're just thinking about printing all those little models that you see, $3.99 on Amazon, you can get one.
It's $399 or $3.99. Okay.
$399, and that's not even the cheapest. The cheapest I've seen was $159, free shipping. You can get one.
Free shipping.
Free shipping. It's Amazon. But then, if you really want to go to the level of, let's say, medical printing, industrial printing.
Well, hold on. What do you get for that? If I spend $160, what can I do with that printer?
First of all, it's probably about this big.
Okay.
So all you can do is you can 3D print like a little model for your child.
Yeah.
Like a toy, that's pretty much all you can do.
And what if I upgrade to the $400 version? Now what can I do?
Then you can probably do a shoe like this.
Ooh, let's look at that. It's really gorgeous. Hold that up there. So that is a product of 3-dimensional printing. Now that's not wearable, is it?
No, it's not. And that's actually a problem with material, not 3D printing itself. And I'm just going to put this on so then I can really talk a little
That's
bit.
amazing, by the way. I
Thank
was
you.
stunned by that. I feel like I should now be looking around for Cinderella, right? So
Yes, it was her glass slipper right here. I had a fancy fit moment and I decided to just 3D print her glass slipper.
wonderful, yeah.
Yeah, but just to get back to what we were talking about, it's not wearable. And the reason why it's not wearable, and this is also a limitation to 3D printing, is that the materials we have access to is very limited.
So let me ask you this. You just showed a wonderful piece of art. If I wanted to be able to produce something roughly that size of those materials, how much is my 3D printer going to cost me then?
This particular one, I ended up having to go much higher quality just because the density, which means the volume, and how much bigger the print bed needs to be. I was using almost a $5,000 machine. I don't own the machine. That's when you had to collaborate with schools, schools or research centers or laboratories who have those machines. And
How big are they? Are they just bigger than a person, or?
they are, have you ever seen those like Kinko's like big plotter machines?
I've been to Kinko's. I've seen big machines. I do not know their names, so
That's
maybe.
fine. That's fine. So they are the biggest one I ever printed was maybe half of that size. So we're talking about almost like a little bit over a yard. That's
Okay.
considered a big machine.
And give me an idea. What does that kind of thing run? If I was okay, I want to go out instead of going to Kinko's. I want to own it.
Right. Well, it depends. Again, it depends on how the laboratory charges. Because I work with the school, because I was alumni there, I got amazing student discount. Just take the shoe for instance. This one took me just about $500 to print it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's still fairly. I mean, it's more expensive than a pair of shoes. Well, most pairs of shoes, let's say.
Yeah, it's just about, it's one of a kind. So hey.
More expensive than any pair of shoes I've ever owned. I'll say that for sure. So. Which leads me right into this sort of next thing, because traditionally prints, a couple of the traditional ways that people have accessed prints previously are through the lithographs and through etchings. And they've really had a prominent place in the world of art prints. But there seems to now be some kind of evolution, right? The process of 3D, I want to say that accessibility is better, or maybe it isn't. I'm not sure. Are we losing something there? Have these older traditional forms fallen by the wayside in some way? And in a similar way, like the film industry used to work only with film. It's still called the film industry, but mostly people are working in the digital world.
Right, that's true.
So are we seeing the same kind of thing right now? Are those older methods being replaced and we're just looking at a new landscape?
It's actually a yes and no answer to that. And the yes part is you do see 3D printing, like slowly phasing out certain aspects of how to create art. Like for instance, I no longer, use my hand to create sculpture because, I'm allergic to the material itself. But the answer is actually, I would say no, simply because, well, actually two reasons why. Number one, a lot of artists are only now slowly getting used to the idea of 3D print their artwork. So they're still learning how to do this. It's still in a learning process stage. And second of all, it's kind of like, painting versus camera. It's like once the camera is invented, the painting didn't exactly go away. It's still here, but it's elevated to a whole nother level of art making. So I feel like 3D printing is going to phase out certain things, but it's not going to replace everything completely. It's just going to elevate, certain older technique, traditional technique of creating things, to another level, and then 3D printing is going to carve out its own place.
So I think it's fair to say that you are part of the digital art world, right? Among other things, not exclusively, but among other things. And that gives you access to people and places that you would not really see in the brick and mortar world of art, like 20 years ago, right? Like 25 years ago.
Yep.
A lot of changes in the landscape in that way. It's almost fantastic to consider the differences, right? I hate to say I'm old enough to see the difference myself, but I do, and I'm stunned by it. And I wonder, are the changes we're seeing right now in accessibility in the digital, are those permanent changes? Because we're also in the midst of a pandemic. So that idea of doing things digitally and online especially is being pushed forward so hard now. There's so much energy behind it.
Yeah.
Is this forever, or are we going to go back to the way things were? What do you think?
I honestly think this is here to stay. I think this is going to become a forever thing. It's not just a momentary, you know, like fancy. That's how I like to call it. Simply because our lives are so driven and warped, well, not warped, more like influenced by technology, literally on every single aspect we can imagine now. It's like me talking to you via Zoom. That's already, you know, not how I used to talk to anybody. And so 3D printing itself, you know, is definitely, you know, going to create a, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like a new art movement. And you see younger generational artists completely embracing it, because to them, using the computer program, creating things is already in their DNA, and 3D modeling is part of that DNA. It's nothing, you know, beyond what they've been doing the last 10 years. So yeah, it's definitely gonna be here to stay.
So at the top of the show, I mentioned that you are the owner of a business. You're an entrepreneur. You're the founder of Spec'd Studio, which is a fashion design company
Yep.
that produces primarily for the B2B community, business to business.
Correct.
And I'm curious about that because I have some familiarity with the world of fashion. And one of the things I'm seeing is a disturbing trend where smaller fashion houses are finding it very difficult to make their way. It used to be, if you would be in like the textile area of Manhattan, like around 34th, 35th Street, 33rd, near FIT,
Yep.
and all these textile companies, fabric companies, and fashion houses all clustered around in one place.
Yeah.
But rents have skyrocketed,
Yeah.
and business has slowed down at the same time.
Yeah.
So a lot of those businesses have been pushed out of the space that they were in formerly. So I want to ask you about your success. It's really worth mentioning because people need a model to be able to follow, because the old model is not working anymore. Can you talk a little bit about your model and advise people that might want to enter the same space as you?
Sure. Well, number one, go digital. That's my very first answer to your question, and my advice to everybody. I'll be very honest with you, like you would mention, because they were brick and mortar for so long, for generations and generations. As the rents start going and their profit starts to going down, there's absolutely no way you can balance the book. And it's been like this since the 90s. The only difference is in the 90s, the economy was actually quite good. We used to joke that I can do a show at Javits Center. I can write $100,000 order per day. That's how easy it was back in the day, selling everything, because you didn't have Amazon, you didn't have eBay, you didn't have all these internet competition going on. But now internet has been with us for almost 20 years, you know? And so what has been happening is that if you want to start your own brand, or even just like a service company within the fashion industry or within any industry, maybe not the food and beverage, because that you can't really go internet, you know, well, up to a point. The thing is that you have to think about what is the current market trajectory. Does everyone need a brick and mortar place to shop? As far as I know, everyone's shopping on Instagram, Facebook, online, you know, online website. And then that's where you need to pour all your resources to and really start there. And that's what I did with my company. Is that I don't even bother with brick and mortar at this point. And everyone is working from home. So I don't even need to rent an office, you know? And so you really had to adapt to the time and see what tools you have, you know, at your disposal.
You think is that a permanent change? Working from home, no more brick and mortar. That's it, done.
You know, at least for the fashion industry, that is what we are seeing right now. You know, I did a couple webinars with the Accessory Council, and we were actually talking about this, is that even before COVID-19 happened, a lot of us were working remotely already, because number one, we are creative people. We don't always need to be in the office to make something happen. We just sit in our little studio, we turning the things on time. And a lot of the creative people are contract people. They're not even full-time people. Mm-hmm. And then this whole Zoom technology came forward. Now everyone's having meeting on Zoom anyway. So even the upper management don't need to be there.
So we're getting towards the close of our interview. We're running out of time. But you have some lovely, lovely artwork behind you. There's one piece in particular that I find really, really superb. I wonder if you could grab it, bring it forward, talk about it, tell us what's going on.
Okay, so I'm going to show you guys this one. This is called Norma Jean, number 2. So it was actually created with watercolor, a lot of ink illustration, because I'm actually an illustrator, by training. And I don't know if you guys can see this, but who do you see there? Do you see Norma Jean or do you see Marilyn Monroe?
Well, is there a difference between them? I don't know.
That's the thing. Is there a difference? And that's pretty much how I do my art, is that I pose the question. I create an idea and you have to arrive at whatever it is that you arrived at. And the way I do it is that once I finish doing everything by hand, I scan it into a computer and I digitally print it onto aluminum die bond. So you can see it's the actual metal. And this is really trying to keep my artwork affordable for everybody. So you don't have to pay $30,000 for my art. Instead, you pay something like $600, $500.
And how durable is that?
This thing can outlast you and me. That's how durable this is.
Yeah, so that's really amazing. Well, Stella, I am stunned by the direction the world of art is moving in, of the space that it's in now, where it's going. I'm stunned by it, and pleased, and I'm excited because a little bit afraid also, but also excited, right? Whenever you go from stuff that you knew and understood and loved, and you're sort of looking at a new frontier and hoping it will be the same or better, but you're not sure yet, that's kind of where we are.
Yeah.
So it's exciting, right? It's exciting, but also there are questions, and you've really helped to answer a lot of those questions for my audience and for myself. So I want to thank you so much for doing that, spending the time with me. It's really been a pleasure. And I hope that after the pandemic, maybe we can talk again and see where you are, how things are going, and we can talk about all your latest stuff. What do you think?
Sounds good. I love that. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, this is Phil of the Phil Rosenberg Show, and I'm here to ask you to do me a small favor. Just take your finger, reach out, click the button that says subscribe. Just take your finger, reach out, and click the button that says subscribe. I need a bunch of subscribers. The more subscribers I have, something good happens. I don't even know what that is. They tell me I got to have more subscribers. I believe them. So please do that for me. I'd appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the show.